What's up, gamers? I hope you guys are all having a great day today, just full of so much positivity and happiness, dude. Because I know I already have butterflies just waiting to talk about what we're going to be talking about here today, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it, man, because we are once again going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 price increase. And to make it even better, we're literally gonna listen to someone defend it by saying that because Microsoft and Nintendo didn't do the same, somehow Sony is justified. And to make it even worse, somehow Nintendo is the real bad guy in this entire thing because they're leaving their prices the same. Yep, you heard that right. By not raising the price on the Nintendo Switch like Sony is on the PlayStation 5, somehow Nintendo is the bad guy in all of this. Now, there's a lot of big-brained individuals on the internet who are capable of having a take this bad, but luckily it's coming from one of my personal favorite content creators on this wonderful website known as youtube.com, and that is none other than our boy Supernova. Roll the MLG intro.
Now, with that out of the way, let's get into this video.
And you know what? Like our boy Supernova just said, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into the cancer.
And I want to be honest with you. When I heard this news about the PS5 prices increasing overseas and certain territories, I honestly didn't give a shit, right? Like, I don't fucking care.
Ah, yes, the famous "I don't care" line, because we're going to see just how much he doesn't care throughout the rest of this wonderful YouTube video.
It doesn't really affect me because I already have a PS5 and because I live in America where the price isn't being adjusted. And honestly, I felt like it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like, prices of shit are going up everywhere.
Well, except in terms of, Sony's main competition, Xbox, the Nintendo Switch, the Steam Deck, even PC component prices are dropping right now. So, if anything, yeah, sure, prices are raising everywhere, except the video game industry, unless you look at the PlayStation 5, because PlayStation is the only one of the console manufacturers that has actually increased the price of their console and video games, keep in mind. You don't see Microsoft or Nintendo charging $70 for first-party titles like Sony does.
And we're coming out of this global pandemic, and I just kind of chalked it up as like, you know how when you have an earthquake, there are aftershocks? That this is just an after effect of the global pandemic that is affecting all kinds of shit.
You mean the global pandemic that led to record-breaking profits for the video game industry in the past 2 years that Sony directly benefited from as a result and, could use that extra money they earned in the previous 2 years to offset any temporary loss on the PlayStation 5 they have in terms of currency exchange rates? Oh wait, no, we're just going to ignore that fact because, Sony was truly crippled by the global pandemic as their gaming revenue hit an all-time record high, and the PlayStation 5 is the fastest-selling PlayStation of all time. But you know what, man? That Kung Flu really crippled them. We should really feel bad for Sony, man. They had a rough 2 years.
So I really didn't see the big deal. But of course, what made it a big deal is the fact that Nintendo and Xbox are not doing the same thing.
Gee, I wonder why. It's almost like what consoles are always sold to us as loss leaders that get people in the door to that ecosystem so then they make their real money on the sale of software and subscriptions. Wow, it's almost like this whole model that fanboys love to brag about suddenly doesn't fucking exist. But I guess we're also supposed to ignore the fact that the PlayStation 5 has been profitable for Sony at $500 for the past year. So this $50 increase across the board in international markets to make up for about 10% inflation is literally designed to just make sure they keep making money on every single unit sold.
And so you immediately get console fanboys using it as a way to wage the ongoing console war. Ha ha, my company's not raising prices, your company is, your company's trash. It gives all these gaming news publications negative stories to write, and we all know that when it comes to news, nothing sells better than negative stories, right?
I don't know, man. This sounds very oddly familiar to me. Are you speaking from experience or something?
That is why they're increasing the price. Whatever reason they give to increase the price, in my opinion, is bullshit. They're trying to get people into the Game Pass ecosystem. They want them on that Game Pass Ultimate, right? Which is fine. It's whatever. But by doing this and now making this service $120 a year, they've effectively made Xbox the worst place to play games. And we're coming out of this global pandemic, and I just kind of chalked it up as like, you know how when you have an earthquake there are aftershocks, that this is just an after effect of the global pandemic that is affecting all kinds of shit.
Keep that same energy.
But when the shoe's on the other foot, it's perfectly okay to call it out.
Nobody wants to read a positive story. Negative story, ooh, that's that juicy shit, right? So if there's something negative to write about, or if something can be spun in a negative light, that's what's going to happen. Now, even with the news of Nintendo and Xbox not following suit with their price increases, I honestly still just didn't give a shit, right?
That's right, man. You've made that point already, and I think we've got it. But judging from this video, I'm just going to go out on a limb. I think he does, in fact, give a shit.
But people on my live stream yesterday kept asking me what I thought. So last night, after the live stream was over, I was kind of thinking about it. And, you know, there are a couple of things about both Nintendo and Xbox that I'm not seeing being a part of this conversation that absolutely should be a part of this conversation.
So if I can sum up what's going to happen in the rest of this video, it's going to turn into one of the biggest whataboutisms you've ever seen, and for no good reason whatsoever. He's basically going to try and take Nintendo and Microsoft's own circumstances and twist that shit into an excuse for why Sony needs to raise the price of the PlayStation 5 and why you should actually be mad at Nintendo instead of Sony for doing this. And I kid you fucking not. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Why that is, I don't know. And I've looked at a bunch of different articles.
No, that noise you just heard was not a bomb going off in the background. It's literally some glitch with his audio or mic or whatever. And it happens about 3 or 4 times in this video. So, you know what? I would love to edit it out, but I feel like if I did, it would take away from the true quality of this video. So, apologies if your ears get absolutely destroyed a couple times in this video, but I feel like it really just adds a lot to the overall argument he's making.
You know, about this particular topic, and I haven't seen it written anywhere. So yeah, and I'll get into what those things are a little bit later. But first I want to start by telling you what the explanation we got from PlayStation was as to why they raised their price.
Blah, blah, blah. It was something to do with inflation, exchange rates. We understand that customers are in adverse situations. We've already done all this shit. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead.
So that's the reason given by PlayStation. Is that the truth? I don't know. Are they lying? I don't know. Are they doing this just to make more money? I don't know.
I really hope this guy does not honestly believe that a company does anything other than in the interest of making more money. And I mean, especially when it comes to raising the price of something. You think once this whole economic environment is fixed or whatever, Sony's actually going to lower the price back? Fuck no, they're not.
All I know is that the reason given by them is that they are changing the price in certain regions because of economic situations.
They're changing the price in every single region except the United States because it's the only region right now where Microsoft is actually beating the PlayStation in terms of sales. That's not a coincidence. In case you haven't noticed, the US has been getting absolutely fucked with inflation too.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
And it's kind of hard to say that's bullshit when we see these economic situations affecting everything else.
Well, it doesn't really seem to be affecting the rest of the video game industry, in particular hardware manufacturers, so I don't really know why Sony's alone in this entire issue.
In our lives all around the world. Now, that being said, of course, the first thing I'm going to get hit with is, yeah, but Supernova, Nintendo and Xbox are not doing the same thing.
Neither is Valve, neither is Nvidia, neither is AMD, you know, the people who actually make the components for the PlayStation 5. So isn't that funny that every other hardware manufacturer in the video game industry is not raising their prices, but somehow Sony, in addition to raising the cost of their own video games, is also raising the price of their consoles? Isn't that just a little odd to you when no one else is doing either of those things? Of course not, it's Sony. They can do nothing wrong. Well, that is unless they port a game to PC, right?
That's how you sell additional console. And I know a bunch of PC guys out there are going to be like, listen, Supernova, PC guys don't give a fuck about the PlayStation console. They're not going to buy a PlayStation console anyway. Well, then again, I have to say, fuck them. Then fuck them. If they don't want to buy PlayStation consoles to play PlayStation exclusive games, then fuck them.
Again, sorry about that.
So clearly, PlayStation doesn't have to either. So if Nintendo's not doing it, and Xbox isn't doing it, the only reason PlayStation must be doing it is because they're evil, greedy bastards. They've gone back to the fucking arrogant ways of the PS3 generation.
I mean, is that really such a crazy claim considering all the shit they've been doing recently? I don't know, I thought it was almost like a requirement for a multi-billion-dollar corporation to be greedy.
Where they feel they can charge whatever the fuck they want for their console. Oh, that's the only... If clearly, Xbox and Nintendo aren't doing it, but PlayStation is. They don't need to do it. PlayStation doesn't need to do it either, and they're only doing it because they're evil, greedy bastards. And yes, this is what you hear all around the internet from fanboys.
I mean, go check PlayStation's own blog post, which is usually filled with the PlayStation White Knight Defense Force. Even they're calling it out in the comment section. No one is defending this shit except PlayStation fanboys. I mean, fuck, dude. Even MBG, of all people, is calling this shit out and saying that this is a really bad thing that Sony is doing, bro. When MBG is calling out Sony for something they're doing wrong and you're defending it, that's a really big fucking red flag, my guy. I don't really think you're in a position to be hurling the phrase fanboy at anyone except your own reflection.
And then you get negative article after negative article after negative article saying like, wow, how could they do this? Oh, why are they doing this? And it's like, yo, they fucking told us the reason why they increased the price in certain regions. They gave us the reason why.
Well, maybe it's because the people aren't buying their bullshit, because every other company in the video game industry that does exactly what Sony is doing the complete opposite of what they just did. So, you know, maybe that might raise a question for some people over the real motivation of this decision. Is that really so crazy of an idea to grasp?
And now I'm going to get into the shit about both Xbox and Nintendo that I'm not seeing being said anywhere, and it's like, why is this not part of the conversation?
I think once you guys hear these reasons, you'll realize just how fucking stupid they are, and you'll probably see why no one's bringing them up.
So when you ask the question, well, why isn't Xbox doing it? The answer to that one's really fucking simple. They don't have to. Microsoft has almost infinite funds. Microsoft and Xbox can weather the storm. They can afford to weather the storm.
You know what? I don't really think this is going out on a limb here, but I think after 2 consecutive years of the most profitable period of time in the history of the video game industry for PlayStation, I think they might be able to afford to take maybe $10 to $20 of a loss on their console sales, considering that, you know, console fanboys love to preach this whole loss leader idea for the PlayStation, that, you know, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, they're willing to lose money on the initial sale of the console because they make it up in software sales and subscriptions, but suddenly that's not a fucking thing anymore, and we're just supposed to believe that Sony had no other option, dude, than to protect the profit they make on every single PlayStation console sold. You know, forgive me as I press X to doubt on that one.
Of the after effects of the global pandemic and wait for shit to go back to the way it was.
Actually, the problem for Sony and the rest of the video game industry right now is things are going back to the way they were, and people are not sitting inside stuck playing video games all day. So Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Ubisoft, Activision, EA, all of their profits are down from the past 2 years because people are not trapped inside of their house playing video games. So if anything, they thrived under the pandemic environment and are now desperately looking for ways to maintain their current gaming revenue, and what better way to do that than to jack up the price?
They've got almost bottomless pockets. Now, is that the reason why they're not increasing the price? I don't know. That is absolutely 100% speculation on my part, I will admit. But if you were to look at this situation logically, Microsoft and Xbox can weather the storm.
Yeah, and so can Sony. They literally make billions of dollars every single year from their PlayStation division. They're not like barely breaking even or just barely turning a profit. They make billions of dollars in net profit every single year from their PlayStation division. Sony is not this small family-owned business that can barely afford to keep the lights on right now, that's doing anything in their power just to survive. I mean, shit, dude, Sony's a bigger company than Nintendo, and Nintendo's not even raising their prices, nor did they raise the price of their fucking video games.
They have more than enough money to do so.
Sony could afford to lose $50 on every single console sold, which they wouldn't even be doing because they're already turning a $50 profit on every single console sold, so at worst they'd probably be breaking even.
PlayStation is not in the same boat financially that Microsoft and Xbox are. So why isn't Xbox raising prices in other regions as well? They don't need to. They could weather this fucking storm. Why no one is saying this, or why I'm not seeing this be a part of the conversation, I don't understand.
Because Microsoft is not the only company on planet Earth in the video game industry that has money in the bank account. PlayStation and Nintendo both have billions of dollars at their disposal to do with as they please. The issue is that Sony is the only one not weathering this storm. They are the only ones in this industry. Instead of just holding on and waiting it out, they're instead passing the cost onto the customer instead. First, they did it with their first-party titles costing $70, now they're doing it with the console. It's becoming a trend. It isn't just an isolated incident.
Because it should be a part of the conversation. And let me make something clear also. If my theory is correct, and the reason why Xbox and Microsoft aren't raising the prices is because they can weather the storm, well then, I think we really need to give props to Xbox and Microsoft because they could have very easily raised the prices in those regions just like PlayStation has, and nobody would have batted an eye.
Judging from the reaction of PlayStation's decision, I'm pretty sure people would have batted a fucking eye. But you know, at least he's giving credit where credit's due, I guess. So, good job on that one. This is like a shining moment in a pile of shit, though. Just you wait, guys. It's about to get a whole lot worse.
So if my theory is correct and the reason that they didn't raise the prices is because they can weather that storm, well then we really need to give props to Xbox and Microsoft because they are taking it on the chin when they don't have to, when there were other ways for them to not have to.
Which is why people are directly comparing this to what Sony is doing. You have other examples of other companies in the industry taking the hit themselves versus fucking over the customers that haven't been able to even buy a PlayStation 5 for the past 2 years, and now when they finally have the opportunity, through no fault of their own, now they get hit with an even bigger price tag, even though they wanted to buy this thing 2 years ago when it was cheaper.
Right? So, not trying to take anything away from Xbox in this situation. I'm just trying to say that the fact that they can weather that storm should be part of this conversation, and I'm not seeing it anywhere as part of this conversation.
Because most people realize a company that literally just spent billions of dollars acquiring Bungie probably has the money to weather the storm.
Now here comes the one that really fucking cracks me up. And again, something I'm not hearing anybody say when it comes to Nintendo.
I think there might be a really good reason for why no one's bringing up this point, my guy.
Because you get these people, oh, well, Nintendo's not raising the price. Bro, Nintendo is selling the Nintendo Switch, a console that is less powerful than consoles from last generation, that is 5 years old, for the same price that it launched 5 years ago.
But if financial conditions around the globe are just so bad, shouldn't Nintendo also be increasing the price to make up for those lost profits? Because I don't really think any company has an interest in losing profitability on anything. So wouldn't Nintendo also be justified in raising the price as well? So why aren't they?
Nintendo doesn't have to raise prices on the Switch, because even with whatever economic hits they could be taking, they're probably still making a profit on the fucking Switch.
Okay, and PlayStation would still be making a profit on the PlayStation. What's your fucking point? In both cases, they would benefit from a price increase because they would either maintain or increase their profitability, so why wouldn't Nintendo do the same thing if they're thinking the same way as Sony? And Sony is so justified in this action. I mean, you said it yourself, if Microsoft would have done the same thing as Sony, no one would have batted an eye, so why isn't Nintendo doing it as well?
Like, why is nobody talking about this? And also, why is nobody upset about that?
I don't know about you guys, but when I go to the store to buy something I've been wanting for a while and it's exactly the price I expected it to be and the price it's been for the past 5 years, I don't know, it just fills me with a fit of rage like nothing else.
Can you imagine paying the same price for a PS5 5 years after it launched?
I mean, at this rate, it seems all the more unlikely we may be paying even more for it than we are right now. But all jokes aside, just to hit you guys with a quick food analogy, this would be like pulling up at McDonald's and ordering something off the dollar menu that you've ordered for the past 10 years and getting pissed off that the item still costs $1 after all this time. Like, you're literally getting something for the exact price it's always been. Why the fuck would anyone be mad about that?
Fuck no! Could you imagine paying the same price for an Xbox Series X 5 years after it launched?
I mean, if we don't get mid-gen refreshes this generation, it honestly would not be too big of a surprise.
Fuck no! Nintendo is selling a console that is less powerful than a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One S for the same price it launched at 5 years ago, which is $100 less than a PlayStation 5 digital.
But you see what I mean, how this video becomes like one big whataboutism? It literally has transitioned from Sony raising the price to now, well, what about Nintendo keeping the price the exact same for the past 5 years? How fucking could they, dude? That's what gamers should really be mad about. Like, it's really just pitiful, bro. Like, this is the type of deflection we saw in Yong Ya's video talking about the PlayStation 5 price increase. He kept bringing up the fucking Meta Quest, bro, because, you know, a VR headset has so much to do with a PlayStation 5 price increase.
Nobody's got a problem with that. The PlayStation 5 is going up by like $40 in certain regions around the world, and people are losing their fucking minds.
Yeah, because they haven't been able to get one for the past 2 years, and now when they finally have the opportunity to do so, they have to pay more than it was when it launched 2 years later. Who the fuck would not be mad about having to pay more for something the longer it's been out on the market? I just don't really understand how people cannot understand this concept.
Nintendo is selling a console less powerful than last-gen consoles for the same price it charged 5 years ago when it fucking launched, which is $100 less than a PS5 digital. Nobody says a fucking word.
Again, why are people going to be upset by the fact that they have to pay what they've always had to pay on something? When, you know, you highlight all these adverse economic conditions that are raising the price of everything across the board, Nintendo has remained constant in their pricing. Why would anyone be upset that they have to pay exactly what they expect to pay for something? It makes zero fucking sense, dude. This really feels like some desperation play to try and direct the anger towards PlayStation onto Nintendo for literally doing nothing, because that's exactly what Nintendo has done in this entire situation. Literally nothing.
So why is Nintendo raising the price on the Nintendo Switch? Because, motherfucker, they're still making a profit on these fucking things. It doesn't matter what the economic conditions are.
And how do we know that Sony isn't making a profit still? I mean, 1 year ago they were profitable on the disk drive PS5, so who knows how profitable they are now a year later, especially with component prices dropping.
Think about it. They are building 5-year-old hardware for the same price that they charged 5 years ago. With consoles like PlayStation and Xbox, about 2-3 years in, we get the slim model with a price cut. It costs less money to make that product.
Which is why it's very hypocritical 2 years into the console generation for Sony to be raising the price instead of cutting it, dipshit.
You think it cost Nintendo the same thing to make a Switch as it did 5 years ago?
No, just like it doesn't cost Sony the same amount to make a PS5 that it did 2 years ago. The logic works both ways, my guy.
Fuck no! So whatever economic conditions are globally, however they are affecting Nintendo, Nintendo's still making a fucking profit on this fucking thing. They don't need to increase the price on the Switch.
But with your own logic, they would be justified in doing so. So that's what I mean. Why aren't they? Probably because it's going to piss off a bunch of their customers and hurt their brand overall, because they seem like insensitive pieces of shit who are jacking the prices up on their gaming products in the middle of some of the worst inflation the world has ever seen, coming off of 2 years of record-breaking profits for the video game industry.
They're making money hand over fist selling 5-year-old hardware for the same fucking price they charged 5 years ago.
And Sony's making hand over fist off of selling other people's games on their consoles. What's your fucking point? Sony makes more off PlayStation than Nintendo does off the Switch.
And let's be honest, the Switch was already outdated when it launched.
Yeah, welcome to the console industry.
When it launched and it was brand new, it was already weaker than existing hardware. So yeah, the Switch is 5 years old, but it's really more like hardware that's fucking 7 years old. Again, why this isn't part of the conversation and why people aren't upset about that is beyond me, because in my opinion, that's the thing that people should be upset about.
Yeah, guys, don't be mad at Sony for raising the price of their console. Be mad at Nintendo for selling their console at an obviously market-suitable price, because the Switch is literally one of the best-selling consoles of all time already. And this is the same guy that said that Microsoft and Nintendo would be justified in raising their price for the same reason that Sony did. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I think it's safe to say at this point, dude, Jim Ryan is not gonna fuck you, bro.
Instead of people being mad that PlayStation is raising prices in certain regions around the world, people should be mad that Nintendo hasn't given a fucking price cut to the Switch since it launched 5 years ago.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but doesn't the Switch OLED still sell out most of the time? Like, bro, why would they drop the price on something that people are literally willing to go and pay consistently to the point where it still sells out? I have never met anyone who gets mad over the fact they have to pay the same price for something that everyone else did.
And then people have the balls to say that PlayStation are the greedy ones. PlayStation are the arrogant ones.
I mean, they are the only company to date that has ever raised the price of a console 2 years after launch, and on top of that, they're the only company that has raised the price of their first-party exclusive titles from $60 to $70. So yeah, I don't really think that's too much of a stretch. But fuck it, man, what do I know? I'm just a fanboy after all, right? Definitely not this dude.
Are you fucking kidding me? Nintendo doesn't understand the meaning of price cut. Excuse me, Nintendo?
I don't really know how many more times I have to spell this out, but no one is upset over the fact that Sony did not decrease the price of the PlayStation 5. They're upset that they increased the price. If Sony would have kept the price of the PlayStation 5 consistent with what it's always been, no one would have given a single fuck, and this would never have even been a topic.
Do you think that the Switch will ever get a price cut?
Price cut. Sumimasen, Iki damimasen. I am very sorry, but I do not understand price cut.
Racism!
Do I really even need to comment on that, man? No? Okay, good. Let's move on.
So yeah, long story short, what are my thoughts on the situation? Like I said, I really don't care about PlayStation increasing the price in other regions. They've given us their reason for why they've done it, and to me that reason makes sense. And I don't think people so much have a problem with PlayStation raising the prices as they do saying, well, these other people aren't doing it, so why are they?
No, I think people would be pretty pissed off regardless of who did it or how many of the companies did it. I don't think anyone would actually be happy having to pay more for a console that they haven't been able to get for the past 2 years. And now, when they actually have the chance to get it, they have to pay more in addition to having to wait all that time. In case you haven't noticed, my guy, no one's really happy with inflation right now.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
And again, when you really take a step back and look at the situation, Microsoft and Xbox don't have to. They've got plenty of cash to make it through whatever we're going through right now. And Nintendo is still making hand over fist, in my opinion, overcharging for weak, outdated hardware. but nobody has a problem with this.
Like I mentioned from the very beginning, this entire video can be boiled down to a pitiful and pathetic attempt to turn this entire situation into a whataboutism about Microsoft and Nintendo, and trying to deflect the criticism towards a different company because he can't stand the idea that precious Sony is getting any bad press. If this isn't considered truly pathetic behavior from a grown-ass man, I don't know what the fuck is.
Again, something I'm not seeing anybody talk about. So, at the end of the day, these are my thoughts on the situation. You may agree, you may not agree. I don't give a fuck, because I don't care what other people think. But
bro, if you don't care what other people think, why the fuck did you make this video specifically citing the things that people are leaving out from this conversation? My guy, that is literally the definition of caring about what other people think. If you didn't care what other people think, you wouldn't have uploaded this video publicly, and you would have just left it private on your YouTube account for you to watch and no one else.
people kept asking what my thoughts were, so these are them, and that's all I got for you guys on this one. And that's the video, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you have a different viewpoint than I do?
Well, I have a feeling that the majority of people watching this video will have an answer of yes to that question, but I don't know, guys. I guess the key takeaway here is don't be mad at PlayStation for raising the prices. Be mad at Nintendo for charging you exactly what a Nintendo Switch has costed for the past 5 years and not increasing the price even with these overwhelmingly negative economic conditions that businesses are being forced to work under. You know, shame on Nintendo for not raising their prices like Sony. What pieces of literal human garbage, bro. But aside from that, man, I don't really think there's too much else we can take from this other than a good laugh. So if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like on it. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, I do want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to check out this video and for all the recent support as well. You guys are the fucking best and I really do appreciate it. And with that shit said, I will catch you guys next time.